How's it going? I uploaded another video last night from the trip. One more video to go. I'll put it up tonight, I'm sure. I think the last one's the best one because you could see where I'm at on that trip and how things ended up at the camp and everything else. It was really good. I'm on my way right now to the workshop to load up the table. So I'm going to leave tomorrow morning to drive to Pahrump to deliver the table, and I'll be there for a few days. Tomorrow's Thursday, so Friday, Saturday, probably head back Sunday. So that's happening, and then a few other things happen. And so this video, I don't know, it might sound like a rant or something. It's not really. It's just kind of what's going on. I've been, I get questions all the time about where I live and how long I've been in my apartment, and people bring up rent and that sort of thing. So I got a thing from my manager today. And by the way, I got a comment. Every once in a while, I can tell what's going on in the comments, right? Based on what I'm putting out there and what comment is under what video and that sort of thing. And there's just a few. This is going to happen. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just pointing it out. There's going to always be, if you put yourself out there publicly, right, the way I do, the way anybody who makes YouTube videos does, from time to time, there's going to be people that just don't like you, don't like your personality, don't like what you've said. They're jealous, or they don't like the way you think, and they think the way they think is the way it is, so they're going to give you these little digs. And I had one of the ones recently was that somebody doesn't like all my complaining and ranting or something, and I thought about that. For one thing, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek and comedy here where I'm cracking jokes, and you might not get that, and that's fine, but that's a lot of it. But you're gonna have to point out to me where I'm doing a lot of pissing and moaning and complaining. I don't like that shit. I don't like when I do it. I've said it before. If I hear myself complain about something more than once just in conversation, it registers in my mind. And after I hear myself say it enough times, I do something about it to change it, so I never have to hear myself complain about it again. That's a pretty normal way to think about that. So I've got this manager who's a really nice guy. His name's Martin. He's probably too nice. You've probably met people like this. He's just like, pretty much, I feel bad for the guy because he's stressed out a lot because he's managing a building here in Los Angeles with a bunch of freaks, a bunch of weirdos, and a bunch of drama. So I go out of my way to make sure, come on, man. I go out of my way to make sure that I'm not giving him any drama myself. But over the years, there's always going to be something. You guys have to keep in mind. Oh, my God. I'm sorry, I apologize. But people just stop in the middle of the road to let people cross when there's nobody behind me. We could have went and there wouldn't have been any issue. And now everything in my van just slid forward because I had to hit my brakes. Bad driving. This guy's in a Rolls Royce. LA. Anyhow, as I was saying, really nice guy. And I guess there's been some issues with my rent checks from time to time where I wrote the wrong amount in. It was incrementally off by a few cents. And then there was some other rent issue, but basically I owe them like $300, something like that, which is fine. But there's been these other things that have popped up over time, and there was an incident that took place. It's been several years. It was with this van where I came home from work one day, and I have all this documented, and it's all written out, and I've got receipts and everything. When you get to the driveway there's a ramp to go up, and you can't see what's beyond that. Like, you could see if somebody was standing there, but you can't see what's going on. So, turned out they were doing work in the driveway that day, and they busted a big hole out in the driveway, and they were replacing some pipes. It was an emergency. It was a plumbing emergency. Can't knock them for that. That stuff happens. The thing was, is we weren't notified about it, and I didn't know, and the driveway wasn't blocked off. And you guys got to remember, and this is the sort of thing that pisses me off about living in an apartment. I do this stuff for a living. I work on people's pads, and sometimes their apartments. And when I do it, everybody knows what's going on. It's clearly marked, and what I'm about to describe to you that happened can't happen if I'm the one doing the job, right? So I come in, I drive up the ramp, I see a guy at the end of the driveway, and I get all the way up to him. He never waves me off. He didn't come up and tell me to stop. Matter of fact, I didn't even drive right up the ramp right away. I stopped, and I'm looking at him, and I'm going like this, and he's not saying anything to me. He's not telling me not to go up the ramp or anything. So I drive up to him, and that's when I see what's going on. And now I'm in a bad spot, because now I got to back down this driveway, which isn't perfectly straight, and it's very tight, and I got some issues. And at the time, when I first bought this van, it had aftermarket wheels on it that widened its footprint a bit. So in the beginning, I used to have to drive up on the curb a little bit to get down that driveway, which is not a big deal for the van. That wasn't causing any trouble to the van. But having to back down at that moment, I couldn't see everything, and I ended up driving over the step for one of the apartments, the last apartment. And I came down kind of hard off that, and it damaged the body of my vehicle, busted that up, and turned out I broke an engine mount. And it took me a while to figure out what the problem was, because I kept going back to this place and replacing all these things, because I thought that's what... I ended up spending like $2,400 between them and my own time replacing parts and trying to solve it before I actually solved it. Of course, the body damage is still there a little bit. I kind of fixed that a little bit. And at the time, I tried to make a claim through the manager, saying, hey man, what the hell is this all about? And even at that point, he might have brought up this thing that I owed a little bit of money at that time for rent, because it was the COVID time. Remember COVID? That was the thing where if you didn't have the rent money, you didn't necessarily have to pay it for a while. But this place, they wanted you to pay it eventually, like you had to make up for it. So I think I was a little off on that. And so I had brought up this thing, yeah, but look at what they owe me for this. So all of that is in the background. And while it has come up in conversation with my manager before, they've never sent me a formal thing. If they would have just sent me what they sent me today, this would have been taken care of a while ago. You send me a formal thing saying, here's what you owe us, no problem. But what about me? What about the fact that you hired a numbskull that didn't block off the driveway, which led to a circumstance that led to damage on my vehicle that then took a lot of time out of my life and money out of my pocket to deal with? That could almost be Martin's fault in a way, but I would never get on his case about that. It was the workmen that they hired. And I was just informed that at the time when I was submitting this, that they talked to an attorney and they deemed it that they're not responsible for it. Of course, they never told me any of this. They didn't send me a paper saying, we got your letter and your receipts, and we talked to an attorney, because I had spoken with an attorney. Some of you are attorneys. Matter of fact, if you're an attorney and you're watching this, I have some. My old attorney's not in business anymore, and I have others. I don't want to make this a case, by the way. I'm just telling you guys a story. So I'll try to remember attorney, the driveway, and I'll come back to this, because there's a lot more to this story about having lived there for this long. Okay, for those of you who've been following along, there's the dining room table. That's the top. That's the beam. These are the uprights. I gotta find the bolts. Yeah, so I got to get this in the back of the van. So I'm going to move some stuff around, look for what I need. I'm letting that car warm up. Then I'm going to put that on the street and back the truck in. But I figure I'll just try to get this all out right now. Yeah. Right. So at that time, I'd spoken with an attorney, and he's like, well, yeah, if you need me to help you with that, it's not a problem. I didn't ever want it to go there. Matter of fact, what I did was when I sent them the note, I said, what the actual issue turned out to be wasn't as dramatic of a thing, even though I've replaced all these other parts. Your end is just $500 basically. That was the cost of the engine mounts and the labor to do that. I didn't mention the body damage, which is, I messed up the pinch weld and the rocker panel a little bit on the driver's side and all that. Now, nothing ever came of that. And from time to time, I'd have a discussion with the manager, and it would be our discussion, but nothing came of it. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. Now, just jumping all the way back to when I moved into this place. You know what? I'm going to put you on the bigger tripod so I could sit down and just talk this out. All right. So, as I was saying, I moved into this apartment building in February of '93. I drove out to LA in September of '92, and I was studying acting in Beverly Hills, and I met this girl, Emily, who I'm still friends with now. She's married, kids, the whole thing. I was visiting with them a couple years ago in Kentucky, and she was living where I live in one of the little bungalows. There's 3 buildings, 3 properties that were all the same owner. It was owned by these people called the Justmans. They had a business, so I don't need to get into all that, but we were friends. And I was out in front of the building one day fixing a guy's car for him. That was Emily's boyfriend. While I was doing that, the manager of the building at the time, her name was Diana Sachs, funny Jewish lady from New York. She saw me out there. She came over and started talking. She says, "Oh, you can fix things? You know, we have an apartment available here, and you know, we're kind of looking for a handyman and everything, and I need to fill this vacancy. Why don't you take a look at it?" And it happened to be the apartment I'm still living in today. And I walked in, the first thing I did, the toilet was running, and I fixed the toilet, stopped it from running. So she made me the handy guy for the building. It didn't last that long. It was pretty cool. The reason it didn't last long was because it didn't really work for me or the Justmans, because the building was, all these buildings were built in 1926. And when I came in, you know, 93, nothing had been done. It was very basic stuff. And so when people were moving out, these units had to get fixed up enough to make them nice enough, you know, so they can rent them. These places were beat up, broken down. So, and at the time we were doing this arrangement, I think my rent was $600 a month or $590 a month. I think we had a deal with that where they knocked it down an extra $10 or something. But part of it was that I was able to use a workshop space in the building next door, which is an interesting point to bring up, because when she did the rental agreement, she did it, and then a few days later she took it out again and amended it, where she added a couple lines that it includes the space, the rent, because the Justmans were awesome. When I stopped being the handy guy, they said, "No, keep using the workspace. It's cool," because they knew it could benefit them having me around, because I still helped out with whatever I could, and I always have. I've always tried to be friendly with whoever the manager is, and I'm very helpful because I've been there so long and I see things. I know what's happening, and I give them advice and let them know when things are happening or when I notice something that needs to be addressed. That actually helps the owners out. Plenty of times I've helped them out from situations that could have been dangerous and hurt somebody. Many times. So that's how I got into the place, and that's what the rent was at the time, and they can raise the rent a little bit every few years. And now I'm paying, it's just under $1,100 a month after all these years, which is very affordable. It's totally cool. I'm probably jumping over a whole bunch of things here. The problem is that there was a couple different owners, or at least one other owner, between the Justmans and the guy who's got it now. It's Ben Boston, I think his name is. And it's Roxbury Lanes is the name of the company. So when that all happened, he didn't want me to use that workspace anymore. And so I went down to talk to him about it, because I had my rental agreement, and he had the original copy that didn't have the extra lines added to it. And his attitude about the whole thing was really weird for me, because you guys know when I left Jersey, I grew up around the mob, and my dad, it's a long story if you don't know, so I don't want to get all into it, but I work for those people. I know how they work. I know how they talk. and he was doing the same, using the same tactics and leverage over me, and it put me in a really shitty mood because he basically saying, well, this is my place now, and if you want to keep using it, you got to give me money for it. So he wanted an extra, I don't remember what it was, $200 or $300 a month or something. Now, look, it was convenient in a way because I could walk downstairs and I had the workshop. It was totally set up. Let me just point out here, I spent, I don't know how much money. It was a lot of money to convert that. And it's all still there. All the electrical, 220 power, all the outlets, that's all me. That's all my money that I spent on that workspace to make it so I could use it. Now, when I started using it, there was a guy who lived upstairs, Gene Ponce. He's a whole story. Writer, magician. Katharine Hepburn came to his house to meet him because he was an agoraphobic, but he wrote a book that was turned into a screenplay that she acted in. Really cool. I knew all the people at the time when I moved in there, so everybody was cool with me having the space, but times were a-changing. Times were a-changing. So his attitude in that meeting with me really put me off. It wasn't that at the time too, it was tough because work was tough. I'm guessing this was the Obama years because it was a very tough time to make money. As you guys know, everything dried up. Nobody was spending money. It was very difficult. And it could have been 2007, 2008-ish is what I'm guessing, because I know that was a rough time for me financially. I didn't really have the extra coin to be shelling out at that very moment. And the truth is, even though it was convenient, it wasn't a great workspace. This is not a great workspace, but it's better in some ways. The other one was better because I could leave my stuff out all night and come back there in the morning. It was untouched, and I can just do my thing. With this setup, I got to move everything out of the way so I can park this car in here every day. But this doesn't cost me actual money. I just do a lot of nice things for these people. And that's a whole other story. You've probably heard a lot of it before. We're not going to get into that. But I was put off by that meeting with him. Whatever. These gracious people here at that time offered the garage for me to use the space. So that ended up working out better for me. It's just under 3 miles away. It hurts my productivity. I don't get here too early. I don't stay too late. So it's not a perfect setup, but it's the setup I have. Now, since this time of the new owner, this company, and beforehand, obviously, I've done a lot of work myself for the place, and I help a lot of people out. I'm what you would call a good tenant. I'm the kind of guy you want to have around. If anything got crazy, I'm there. If somebody was going nuts and I'm there, I could take care of that situation, or in an emergency to shut something off, whatever. They're way better now than they used to be with getting things done. Not just these people, but the way it used to be in the past. I mean, there's several things that I could just off the top. Matter of fact, Martin has brought this up because he's really pleased with what I did with the back door. Keep in mind, these places were built in 1926. I've done a ton of work on my own pad just to keep it going, and everything I've done has been a major improvement that makes the place better over the years, even before this owner had it. One of the things I had done was my old door had fallen apart, and I found a replacement door on the property, and I resized it, and I resized the opening. The whole jamb and everything was at a square. You know me, I did a pro job. I made a custom oak threshold. Just the threshold that I made. If I made that for somebody else, you'd be talking to make it, finish it, and install it. It'd probably be $1,100 or more. Just the threshold. Because it's not a store-bought thing. I had to make it to fit that spot. And the door, I totally reinforced this door. I filled in the panel on the back side, made it super thick. It's almost bulletproof. Put brackets in that I mortised in. I mean, I did and it's the vintage classic door that originally came on the building. So that's one of those. Matter of fact, my back porch, when I moved in, it was only about 3.5 feet deep and the width of the length of what it is now. And it was falling apart, wooden stairs. And they had a steel guy come over, and when they were going to redo it, they were going to redo it with the same dimensions. And I talked to the guy, I said, how much would it cost to make it? I wanted it to go out 8 feet, but they did 6 feet. And it was another, I can't remember, I think it was about $800 out of my pocket that I shelled out so that the porch would be bigger. which helps them rent the unit next to me, which is going to help them when I eventually get out of here, whenever that is. I might die there. Who the hell knows? So my point with this is just that I've done a lot of things that have improved the building that I paid for myself or put my own time into, that I never asked for anything. So this little discrepancy with the rent, it's like I said, it's like $320, something in that range. I'm going to give it to them. But these things are like a real thing, so it irks me a little bit. That's all I'm saying. The big one was the thing with the van, because they never got back to me about that. Now there's another thing that's happening that is a serious thing. And I'm sending a link to this to the management, but I might even text it over to Ben because I've got his cell number still on my phone. I don't know if it's still good. Hi, Ben. Because there was a couple incidents with him. One time when I still had the old pickup truck, I was driving down the driveway and he was coming up and they were doing something there. And he saw how tight it was and he looked me right in the eyes and he said, "I'm going to take care of this." Because I mentioned it to him when we had the meeting about the workspace. I said, "Dude, our driveway's fucked up. You know, I mean, we got this curb that doesn't need to be there. It was made for Model A's, man. It's a problem. People hit the first step all the time. People have blown their tires out on that. Tons of damage on cars. And people just accept this, by the way. Of course, the management can say, well, you don't know how to drive. Everybody else is doing it. They're not having any problems. But it's a navigatable thing. I use the Force, like Luke Skywalker, to go down that friggin' driveway. So he looked me right in the eye and said, "I'm going to take care of this." And I said, "That's great, man. You know, I'll help you any way I can." Just as a reminder, because he doesn't know this, #1 architecture student in school, winning awards, everything, been designing and building things for 37 years. I know how to do things correct, better than standard. That curb can be taken out and you gain approximately 4 inches of width. And things could be done with the steps on the other side. As a matter of fact, what ended up happening, a friend of mine who died, he was a road crew worker. He had a giant concrete saw and some other stuff, and he came by one day and dedicated, a day to me, and we trimmed up that curb and we trimmed down the front step, the first step for the first unit when you go up the ramp, because people were hitting that all the time. And the guy who lived there at the time was so happy about that I did it, because it would wake him up and scare him and whatnot when people would hit that concrete step. So that's another thing I did that didn't cost them anything, that made it better for everybody else that lives there. But he never did it. He looked me in the face, said he was going to do something, and never did it. And I never called him out on that. I didn't call him and say, "Dude, you promised you were going to do this," Because again, it's not just about me. It's about everybody else. So yeah, there's those things. It's a little aggravating. The new thing is, there's been this stir. Everybody's really worried about it. I wrote a whole letter. I still have a copy of it. I gave it to Ben. If you haven't gotten this letter, talk to Martin, because he submitted it to the management company. They want to build a structure in our driveway for 2 units because they want more money. I get it. They're doing it right now behind Martin's place, which is 2 buildings over. What a disaster this is, because first of all, the people that normally would be parking there, they're all parked on the street now. So it's killing the street parking. And it's taken forever. And it ain't cheap. I know they're spending a bunch of money to do this. I'm not looking forward to it if they choose to eventually do it behind our building, because that's going to be a shitty way to live, and we pay for the parking spaces. So I don't know if they're giving those people a break on their rent because they lose their parking space, but that would make sense. But the big thing for me is, like, my van is not a standard Astro van. It's a 4-wheel drive lifted vehicle, and I've got a bunch of gear in it that's worth a lot of money. And if I'm parking that on the street, that's a huge, huge risk to me. And all the I got tools in there and everything else. If that van gets taken or somebody breaks into it, that's really going to screw me up, and they're responsible for that in my eyes. But the big one is I looked at the plans one day when they were out there, and the height underneath where you park is only set at 7 feet. Well, my van's over 7 feet tall. So what are you telling me? You're telling me I can't park in my own spot that I've had for 32 years. So that could be changed. There's a variance issue. I don't know how they would get around it. They could. Everything could be done. If it was 8 feet, I'm golden. I don't care, you know. But that's something that needs to be made aware of, because I keep talking to Martin. I don't know if Martin is really telling them all this stuff. I did send a letter, but I gave it to Martin, you know, through the Dropbox with the rent. So I don't know if that was passed on to them and they have actually read it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, because I never heard a thing back from anybody. Martin's been my middleman. I haven't gone direct. And the reason I haven't gone direct is because the bad taste in my mouth after dealing with Ben in that initial meeting, which is sad to say, because I don't think he's necessarily a bad guy, but he says a lot of things, and then, you know. So this is just the situation I'm in. I'm fine. I'm not angry. This is not even really a rant, really, or overly complaining. I'm just telling you how it is. This is everything I said is 100% accurate to truth. As far as I know it, from my side, you know. So I just wanted to get this out there. I got to write this check to them now. Because the thing was, I just get it this morning. I'm coming over here to load this up. I got to clean up here. I got to do some more things at the apartment. I got some other people to talk to. I got a bunch of phone calls to make. And then in the morning, I'm taking off. By the way, for those of you who are here for more of the Astrovan stuff, I'm stopping at Track Motive on the way out to Pahrump, and they're getting underneath the truck, and if their axles will work, those extendable axles, CV axles, they'll make a set for the van. I'm hoping, let's all pray and cross our fingers and put out the good vibes that there's enough room for these axles to work, because that would be a huge, huge thing for all you Astrovan owners who have lifted your vans and taken off-road and wish there was a better option, a more robust option for the CV axles. So, which was another thing I did when I did that damage. I replaced my CV axles myself. But yeah, that's it. That's the end of this. So Martin, I hope you enjoy this. I don't think I say anything terrible. It's all reality. Martin has mentioned before that he would like to get a check for me for doing the back door. And the reason I've never tried to charge them for any of the work I've done, I just do it, is because what I would charge for something is not what they would pay for it, right? They've got these guys that come and work on the apartments. It's very painful for somebody like me. I don't ask for anything, like I said. There's probably a bunch of things that need to be done in my pad that I don't do. I never ask for it. I usually just eventually take care of it myself. I got to replace a washer. I'll tell you something funny. They came through and they had to replace all the plumbing in the buildings. And when they did it, to save money, because it would be the only reason you would do this, is they didn't put shutoffs in the sinks. So bathroom sink, kitchen sink, they took all the shutoffs out and they didn't do it. So now, if you're in a unit and you need to replace a fixture or a washer, they have to shut the water off to everybody in the building to do that work, which is a real inconvenience. If you don't live there, it doesn't bother you. And that's why people who own buildings will do things like this. But I was there when they did it, and I asked politely, and I said I would even pay for it out of my own pocket. Please put shutoffs. Oh, also the tub. So the tub, the sink in the bathroom, and the sink in the kitchen, I have shutoffs, hot and cold shutoffs. And I actually have to replace the washer in my kitchen. I've been forcing it. It's getting to the point where I gotta do it. But I replace my washers all the time. No problem. Been doing this for decades. I do need a new wax seal in my toilet, and I'm probably going to get a new toilet guts for the tank. Because every once in a while it keeps running. I have to go in there and pop the top off and fix it. So that's getting to be a little bit of an annoyance. And the sills on the building are falling apart. You know, I noticed my bedroom one is busted and hanging there. But I don't like putting it out there and asking for it because, as I was about to say, the guys that do the work, nice people. Don't have anything against them personally, but, you know, oftentimes they're really dirty. They track dirty stuff in, and they leave handprints, and they leave a mess. And, you know, I want to know. I want to put fernie pads down and all that sort of stuff. And then the quality of the work just isn't very good. You get what you pay for. And I don't want to throw them under the bus. Again, they're nice guys. They will get better at it. Like the tile job they did in my bathroom is so bad. It's so bad. It's just really, you know, if I did that job for somebody, they wouldn't even pay me. You know what I'm saying? They'd be like, what are you, crazy? So yeah, if I was to get a check for totally restoring that door, my back door, and reinforcing and putting it in. And one of the things I did, by the way, the door swings out. It's not how it was originally designed, but a door that swings out, you can pop the hinges and pull the door off. So what you do in that situation is you open it, you mount it, you hang it. My door, I push it with a finger and just clunk, closes perfectly every time, because it wasn't just about hanging a door. It was squaring up and reinforcing the framework, the jamb system that the door is hung on. But what you do is after the door is hung, you open it up and you put screws in the jamb, 3 or 4 screws. You close the door till they hit and make a mark, and then you drill holes on the edge of that door. Now when you close the door, those bolts go into the holes in the edge of the door. Now if you pull the pins, you can't get the door off. So it's a security measure if somebody tries to break into your apartment. And, which I'm happy about, there used to be, in the old days there was a screen door before I moved there at the bottom of the stairs in the front. And I put a wooden one there years ago, and eventually that rotted. When that rotted away, they put a steel door in, which was a nice thing for them to do. I was very happy about that. 2 things: wasn't mounted correct, and it wasn't closing because it was hitting, because this is the people they hire, it was hitting the threshold. So I had to relieve the threshold to make the door work, which again, never charged them for that. Don't care. I just wanted it to work right. I live there. But it's got a deadbolt and a knob bolt lock. I never got keys for it. So every once in a while I come home and that door is locked and I can't get in. I got to walk around to the back. So I'm probably just going to replace that lock and get new keys myself. That's just probably what I'm going to end up having to do, because I've mentioned this to Martin several times and I still don't have the key. Not dumping on you, Martin. I'm just saying, since we're putting all this all out there. My text with Martin today was, he was pointing out, like, if I don't pay this, they can do this thing where they give me a 3-day notice. Like, I don't know if it's eviction or what, but that's how it sounded to me. And I'm thinking, I got to drop everything now and pay this to do this over something that I was never getting anything. All I ever did was talk to Martin every once in a while about it. You send me something paper-wise, fine. And if I would have had a real objection to that, then I could deal with them directly. But I'm not even dealing with them directly now. I'm still dealing through Martin. They don't want to deal with me. That's what the manager's for. And again, I feel bad for that. I'll tell you, living there for as long as I've lived there, I had been approached in the past to be the manager of these buildings. Every few years, there were new managers. Every time I was asked to be the manager. Not by this company, before these people took over. And there's no friggin' way you could pay me enough and make my life good enough to do that job, dealing with the people you got to deal with. We've got some kooky people that live in the building. Crazy. I've even got a new neighbor who, when she moved in, super nice, kind of flirty, always wearing kind of revealing outfits and whatnot. We had a lot of back and forth. She's from the East Coast. It's all cool. And I made some comment the other day, and then she said to me the next day, please don't talk about my body or something in a certain way. I said, no problem, never happened again. But that's when I saw, because I picked up on it when I first met her, and then I could tell she was trying to be a different kind of person to get to know me well enough, so that she can kind of dump this other stuff on me. She's, one of those people that happen to lean a certain, well, for you it would be this way. It's all fine. But now I know, and that's good. I don't mind that. But man, we've got some people that live there that are imagining things and creating problems with. There's a lot of drama when you live in an apartment. So I try not to interact too much with the people that live around me. I used to, in the past, I was more friendly with a lot of people. But the other part of that is when you own tools and you can do stuff. Well, now you're doing stuff for everybody all the time. And I got my own life. I don't want to be in a situation like that where they're just knocking on your door with, if I'm friendly with you and I make the offer, it's fine. But you understand what I'm saying. Anyhow, that's just what's going on. I've been living in this place that long, and that's how it is. I could, I suppose, show you the porch or show you this or break out the paperwork to prove what I'm saying. I don't feel the need to do that at this moment, but it's all there. You can see it. You can see the back door. I've been living there for so long, I've always taken pictures. So there's actually a visual documentation of what things were like and I took the apartment as is too, unpainted and all that. I did a lot of my own painting and all that stuff. So my situation is just different from a lot of other people. They do fix the places up much nicer now, by the way, before people come in. In my opinion, the only bummer about it is that they erase the original architectural integrity and quaintness and coolness of the 1920s. Like they update everything so it's kind of modern in a way that doesn't like fit with the outside aesthetic, and that might be what people want nowadays. I don't know. You know, if it was me, I would have. What I used to do is, you know, you make it new, but you're still hinting at with the details the original architectural design and integrity aesthetic from the 1920s. So it's kind of a shame that that's all being erased, but not my place, man. I can't say anything about it. So that's all that's happening. Figured you guys would get a kick out of that, because I do find that I keep getting questions about more about my personal life and living here and all that good stuff. And when Sarah was here a couple weeks ago and she did, you know, came into Hollywood and came through the apartment, none of that really came up. And there was a lot of those sorts of questions in her comments. So now you know, and I hope you got a kick out of this, Martin. And now you guys know too over there at Roxbury, because I'm sure you'll get this, and it's fine. I'm not angry. I'm paying the money. But I used to do collections for a guy back east. So I get a little bit, you know, when it comes to money and there's these sorts of things being held over me, my brain goes into that mode, and I didn't like being that person, and that's why I walked away from that life. And so every time that ever comes up, like my brain turns a gear, puts me in a little bit of a bad mood. That's all that is. I'm just being honest. So you guys have a great day. Be kind to one another, and I'll catch you in the next one.